Welcome back to a new video, and on this occasion is the Arturia MINIFREAK oscillator types. Everything on this guide is in chapters. If you look at the description or the timeline, you can jump to a section or skip the ones you don't want. If you like this, please like and subscribe. This channel is supported by viewers only. If you want to buy me a coffee to say thanks and help the channel keep going on, you can. You have links on the description for PayPal, YouTube thanks, and Patreon. Alright, so we have a lot of oscillators to go through right here. Yeah, we have a ton. Everything is open. The filter is open. The ADSR is back to default. So I'm pretty much starting with the default patch, and the oscillator 2 in this case is going to be off. Alright, so it makes sense that we start with the first one, which is going to be the basic waves. And if I play something with all the controls all the way down, we just get a square. And the first control, the basic control, is going to be the wave, the morph. I'm sorry. If I keep going up, it's going to change from a square, and at 50% you will be getting a saw, just a saw. If I keep going down, it will bring us a saw, but then it will bring up a second saw, and we will start getting pretty much a saw, but it's going to be 1 octave up. Now, using it like this, it's just pretty much nothing. It works with the other controls. I'm going to show you in a minute. So I'm going to go all the way down back to the square. Now, the timbre in this case is going to be the symmetry. On a pulse, if I keep going up, it's going to change the pulse width. So this is a classic pulse width. We can modulate this with an LFO and get that pulse width modulation. If you go all the way to 50% and we stay on that saw, the symmetry does nothing. Right? Again, this is trying to emulate type of a vintage synthesis or an analog oscillator. So we get nothing because we have just a saw. But as we keep going up and we go to that 2 saws, if I move the symmetry, it will take one of the saws and it will start moving it around. So it's changing the phase or shifting the phase. And this will, of course, will modify the symmetry of the waveform. And just we get, a new waveform. And by modulating this, we get almost pretty much the same effect that we get with the pulse width. So this is a good control to run some LFO or something else. Alright, so then if I go all the way down, what do we get on the next one? It's going to be a sub. So if I go up, we start getting a sub. So if I go up, I'm going to start getting a sub. And we don't need to overthink this. This is a sine wave, but 1 octave down. And that's all it is. That is that we get a lot more sub and less of the other one. And okay, so coming up next, it's going to be the Superwave. Now, this is a unison type of algorithm, and this is the classic super saw. Essentially what it does, it will create copies of the same waveform. It will stack the voices, we'll stack them and detune them. That's why, we get a big sound with this one. Okay, so all the knobs down on this one, everything down, I'm going to go to the first one. The first one is going to be the type of waveform. We get a waveform, we get a saw as we keep going up. Then we get a square, and I keep going up, and now we get a triangle, and then we get a sine wave, which is totally fine. But notice that the saw, it's not super, it looks a little bit different than the other saw, and it's because remember what this oscillator does is going to stack different versions of a saw. So if I go all the way down and I keep it saw, this one is going to be the volume, but it's not the volume of the oscillator. This is the volume. This one is the volume of the copies. So if I keep going up, notice that we start getting them. We can also hear them. Now, of course, if you take a waveform, any waveform, and you stack the waveforms and they are completely the same, if just going up in volume on all of them, you just get more volume. You just don't get a better sound. But in the case of this oscillator, the copies, let's say, or the other, the saws, in this case, waveforms, are, they have a different phase. They are in different places. So the trick right here is that we have to go up on the volume of the copies. We need to go up in the detune. It's going to detune the voices, the copies, and we start getting, the big sound. If you keep going up, you're gonna get more and more, and at some point, you will enter the beehive territory. And right here, this control is completely up to you. You can go all the way down and get something very narrow, a little bit more movement, and then go maybe all the way up and do fully unison. Now the cool thing is that on this control, on this oscillator, we can change and do a square instead of just, the common super saw. Now, when you go to the other waveforms, the other ones, they have less harmonics. I'm gonna go all the way down this. Remember that this one is going to be, let me go there, is going to be a triangle. So maybe going up in volumes, you will not be getting, a lot of harmonics, so we get less. And going up in detune, more than getting a big sound, you get more of a tremolo-ish type of effect. If I do the same for the sine, it's going to be even more. We get a more tremolo type of action. Alright, so cool. Coming up next, it's going to be the harmonic. This is a type of additive synthesis. This oscillator is a kind of a simplified version of this. I'm going to go all the knobs down. On some oscillators, you need to have the knob on 50% or maybe 100% to be on default values. On this one, all the way down. If I play something, notice it sounds like a sine wave, but it's just not a sine wave. We get more harmonics. And it's because this is how it works, is that it's going to take a collection of sine waves and it's going to put them on a particular order so we can get, different harmonics. Now, when we go up on the wave, it's going to start shifting this harmonics and we're going to start getting, different tones. And we go from, of course, less, and we go up in the chart. So we get more harmonics as we keep going up and up and up and up. And this is how you tune the fundamental tone of the oscillator. You get less, or you go and get more. Alright. Now, if I go all the way down, I need to go to the timbre. If I play something, remember this one, how it works, is just, formed or just created out of a collection of sine waves. The timbre is going to change that. You change the fundamental sine wave to a triangle. And since we have more harmonics with triangle, is going to change the harmonic content and we get a different type of sound. So you need to use this with this and trying to find the tone that you like. And you can get, really cool xylophone type of sounds. And if I go all the way down, notice it's just affecting it a lot more. Now then, since it can sound really narrow, the last one is going to be a chorus. So this one is going to, of course, add width and thickness. Now still, again, you remember you have an effects section on the synthesizer, not just like the MINIFREAK where you don't have effects. So if you want to make it bigger, add a nice little chorus, or maybe that unison type of effects, or even, just a reverb, just to make it a little bit bigger. Alright, so coming up next, it's going to be the KarplusStr. So Karplus and Strong are two guys, and they developed a way of synthesis. The idea of this is to loop a short noise, then pass it through a filter delay, and the plan is to get a realistic-ish plucked string sounds. Tweaking the knobs, you can get different types of sounds, not just plucked strings. I'm gonna go all the way down on this ones. If I play something, what do we get? I'm gonna go up in volume. We get a plucked string, and it sounds pretty cool, right? Sounds pretty convincing. All the knobs, they do something, and it will change the sound. Right now, it's very plucky, and it's because it's very short, and it sounds like a guitar. Now, this one is going to be the decay. If it's all the way down, it's super short. As we keep going up, it will make it, longer. If we keep going up, and up, and up, and up, now it sounds more like a guitar, right? And we go all the way up, we have a lot more decay. But still, it's still very plucky. It depends on, what you want to do. This is going to give you a lot more. And on the other one, if I go down and I press a key, notice that the pluck ends right there. And if I go all the way up and I press a key and I hold it, we have sustain, which is, something that we don't have when we are all the way down. We just get a pluck, and now we have sustain. All right. So this is the kind of, I think, in my opinion, right, is the first part of the equation. Secondly, it's going to be the timbre. I'm going to go all the way up on the decay so we can hear what this does, because if it's too plucky, it's just really hard to identify. So this one is going to be the position. So I'm going to be playing it like this, and I'm going to move this one, and it will sound like the resonance of a filter. So when the attack hits, the initial attack is altered when we move this. That's why it sounds like that. But it changes pretty much the tone of the sound. It has no effect on the decay. It will only react to the attack. So all the way up, and kind of about 50%. Different tone. You go all the way down, completely different tone. I'm gonna go all the way down on the bow, but keep all the decay all the way up. So the bow will increase the tone that sits behind the pluck. It's a constant sound. That's the fundamental sound. And it's a constant sound. So the decay, of course, will affect the bow, because if I keep going up, notice that now we get that sustain that we were getting when we hold the key. And if I keep going up on this, it's gonna mess with that, plucky type of sound. Now what we get is more like a synth type of sound, if I even go all the way up. Right? And it's pretty aggressive. So, like I said before, just changing this will change the tone, and even changing the decay, we can get, very different sounds. This is a very cool oscillator. If you just want to go up on bow, you're gonna be getting, just that. I'm gonna go all the way down on the controls. Remember, this oscillator generates that type of sound. It's great for guitar, plucky, or string sounds. But then you have the rest of the synthesizer. So even if you go all the way up on the bow and delay, it sounds in decay, it sounds super aggressive. But then you have your filter, so you can filter the sound. Maybe even go up in resonance. And if I play a chord, it's great for strings. So right here, we are just learning the fundamentals of the oscillators. Then you need to go through the filters, the envelopes, the effects, and, generate a good sounding patch. Coming up next, it's going to be the virtual analog. And maybe you're thinking, maybe on the first one, the basic waves, isn't that, virtual analog? Well, yeah. Kind of like that. The thing is that there are some things that you need to know, especially about the, the MINIFREAK and how the MINIFREAK works and the MicroFREAK works. Arturia used oscillators types developed by Mutable Instruments. This is a different developer. It's not Arturia. And they and these oscillators, they belong from an Eurorack module called plates, V-Analog, the Waveshaper, Formant, Chords, Speech, Modal, and 2-operator FM, they belonged to this module. So if you're planning getting into the modular synthesis world, addictive world, you check that brand, check Mutable Instruments. They make really cool stuff. And since we are talking about this bass, the oscillator bass and SawX and Harmo, Arturia took them with permission, of course, from noise engineering. So when you think about all of this, MicroFREAK and MINIFREAK are essentially a collection of very special oscillator engines. Okay, so let's talk about that virtual analog. I'm gonna go all the way down on the controls. Notice that you do get some defaults. In this case, all the way down. If I play a middle C, and I'm playing a middle C, what we get is a super low triangle. That's fine. This is what we get, but it's super low in frequency, and I'm gonna keep pressing the middle C. Now the main one right here is gonna be the shape, because this one changes, the waveform from a triangle to a saw. As we keep going up, is gonna take it to a square, and then if you keep going up, it's gonna be a narrow square. But still, the fundamental tone, it's super low in frequency, just super low. Now then this one, the wave, is going to be the detune, and it will change the frequency of the oscillator. As I keep going up, as we get a C, if it's all the way down, because I'm pressing a Z, but as I keep going up, we get a D, D sharp, E, and F, and A, and they keep going up and up and up and up, until we'll go all the way up. And I'm right now on a C, but it's just way, way up. So if you think about this detune could be at 50%, and we get something normal, but you can detune it and go down. But also, you can go in to the in-betweens. You're not locked into octaves. So you could maybe play a key and then select an interval. And that's the main idea of this oscillator. Right, for now, I'm just gonna go all the way down. This is one oscillator. Where is the second oscillator? It's gonna be this one. So with the square all the way down and all the way down on this one, I'm gonna bring this one. Notice that now it starts showing up. And we get that sound. Now, what this is a square. And all the way down is going to be a super narrow pulse. That's why when the shape it's or timbre in this case, it's all the way down, we don't hear it because it's super narrow and it's just not there. But as we keep going up, it's going to make it less narrow, and now we start getting it. And as we keep going up, we get more of that square. And at some point, when you cross the 50%, I guess, maybe even more, it will start to hard sync. Now, the trick right here, and this is completely up to you, you can maybe just use this hard sync to get those kind of sounds, but maybe right here you can detune and play a different interval. Maybe I'm gonna go to something else. Now you get atonal sounds. You just find the sweet spot for you. And if I go down, we just get the fundamental and not the other waveform. But you know, you can bring it, get a narrow pulse, just a square, or a hard sync type of, waveform. And like I said before, you can modulate this with an maybe a decycling envelope, or just an envelope, or even an LFO. To get that hard sync type of sound. But that's it. If you think about this is just a square. Right here, you can choose the different waveform, and when you tune it, maybe you can tune it to something a little bit more normal and not super low and not super high, and you just get a 2 oscillator type of sound. There we go. Coming up next, it's going to be the Waveshaper. This one is a combination of a Waveshaper and a wave folder. And wave shaping and wave folding are just not new. They have been around for a while. Alright, so make sure that you are on the Waveshaper. All the knobs down for now. If I go to the wave, I'm going to go to 50%. And this is like the initial starting point for this oscillator. Almost 50%. Now when I play something, it's going to give us almost, it's not a pure sine wave, but we get pretty much a sine wave. So the shape, the wave in this case, going down is going to start affecting that waveform, and at some point, if we go all the way down, we get almost like a square. Now going to the other side, if we go over 50%, it will start shaping it in a different way. It will start, notice, I want you to take a look at the peaks, the upper parts of the waveform and the lower part of the waveform. As they keep going up on this one, they will start to fold. And when it folds, of course, we get different harmonics. And when we get to a new point, it will keep folding again and again and again and again until we get max. So that's what, this oscillator does. This is the first part of the oscillator. Now then I'm gonna go back to that sine wave. This one, the shape, is going to be the asymmetry. So if I keep it on almost a sine wave and I keep going up on this one, that is what it does. It will start messing with the starting point, and instead of a sine wave, we start getting a saw. And it's not sine wave anymore. Same thing will happen with the other waveforms. If I go to that square lookalike, I'm gonna change the symmetry, and notice that now it looks like a square. And it sounds like a square too. And if we go to the other side, maybe here, shaping or moving the shape, it will take it to a different place, and we get a lot more harmonics. That is that it will just kind of a sip. It's like sipping everything when I move this control. And we get, very interesting sounds. Alright, so the main controls, in my opinion, are the wave and the asymmetry, right? With these ones, we can get a lot of different tones. And this is the main plan of these oscillators. Most of the oscillators on this synthesizer, at least, we get something very dull, maybe. And then moving a couple of knobs, we get something more interesting. And then, of course, we go through the filters and, the envelopes and, we create something else. Right, so, again, this is the basics. Then we have the other side, which is going to be the timbre. I'm going to go to 50% and get that sine wave, right? So then you have this control, the timbre. Now this is the wave folder side. And I'm going to use it on that sine wave. And the plan of the wave folder is that every time the peaks and valleys, they touch the limit, it will start folding them. So I'm going to keep going up and notice that they start folding. And I keep going up and up. And now we touch the limit and they will start folding and folding and folding and folding. And of course we get more harmonic content or less. And it's a little bit different from the other one. If I go up on wave, notice how it folds. And on the other one, if I do the same, it will fold, but it will fold in a different way. At some point, it will start folding again. Notice that now it's folding again. And the combination of this one and the other one, and even the shape, gives you a lot of different timbres. And right here is where you need to do some experimentation. Just find the tone that you like, and then, use the cutoff, the envelopes, and everything else just to get, a nice sounding patch. Alright, so coming up next, it's going to be the 2-operator FM. And like it says, like the title says, is a 2-operator. Now, maybe you're starting with with synthesis and you don't know how FM works. So maybe if I try to explain just with these 3 knobs and not a lot of visual information, you're going to get a little bit confused. So let me bring something else and let me give you a tiny little 101 on how FM works. Okay, so I have an OP6 right here, which is a plugin, but this one, it's all about FM, and it has 6 different operators. In the case of the MINIFREAK, we only have 2, so I'm gonna use this just to show you how it works. So we have the first one, which is gonna be the first oscillator, and then the second oscillator. But in the FM world, they are not called oscillators, they called operators. Now, how it works on the MINIFREAK at least, is that the number one, the first operator, is the one that comes out, is the one that the one we hear. The other one is hidden. We don't hear it. But this one will influence whatever the one will say. So think of this like this being the president and this one being the advisor. Whatever the advisor says is going to be reflected on the president. Because we don't hear the advisor, we hear the president. And I guess I'm not sure if that is a good analogy, but that's fine. So if we play something, we get a sine wave. And that's fine. This is what comes out from the OP6. So what we hear is a pure tone, pure sine wave. And it's because the advisor, the number 2, is not advising the number 1. We just hear the president. But if the number 2 changes even the level or the tune or even the feedback, it will affect the first one, right? The 1. So if I go up in level, notice that we start getting a completely different sound. So how loud this one is will affect the number 1 because it's influencing or frequency modulating the oscillator or the operator number 1. So even they are using the same waveform, the same tune, the same everything, going up in level will affect it. Then we have the other side. If the level affects the tune, and this is the ratio, will affect it too. If I go lower on the tune, this is the frequency, the tuning, it will affect it on a different way. So this is the second part of the, the equation. The level will affect it. And then the tune will affect the number 1 as well. And then you have a different thing, which is going to be the feedback. The number 2, the operator 2, is able to feedback to itself. So if I keep going up in feedback, it's going to get really cranky. and at some point it will get very noisy. So you use this to add more harmonics if you're using a sine wave or any other thing, but in this case we work with sine waves. So the number one, it's called the carrier in the FM world, and the other one, both are called operators, but the number one is carrier because it's the one that comes out, and this one, it's influencing the number one, and it's called a modulator. But they are both operators. And now we know that if the modulator goes up in volume, will affect the number one. If it changes the tune, it will affect the number one, and if we go up on feedback, it will affect the number one. Now let's take this to the MINIFREAK. I'm gonna go all the way down, and the feedback, I'm gonna keep it on 0. And notice that on some oscillators, sometimes the 0 going all the way down is not the initial starting point. In this case, the feedback at 50% is the initial point. Right, so if I play it, we can hear that fundamental sine wave that the carrier, it's outputting. We know this now. Now then we have the timbre, and this is the hidden sine wave that is affecting the main one. So if I keep going up, notice that it will start modulating it more and more and more and more and more. So this is the advisor changing the mind of the president. Right, so we go up on this one, this is like the level. We go up, we get more. Go down, we get less. And then the first one is going to be the ratio. So if I keep it maybe around there, going up in ratio will affect the carrier. Now on the plugin, just like I showed you a minute ago, the ratio is fixed. On this synthesizer, on this oscillator, the ratio is not fixed. So you're going through all the in-betweens. That's why you get tonal, very musical sounds, but you also get atonal sounds. And it's because they are now on different frequencies, but when you find the sweet spot, it sounds more musical because it's pretty much the same tune, or maybe you're playing a fifth or seventh. If I keep going up, atonal, and at some point, it's going to be pretty much the same. But this is completely up to you. If you want an atonal sound, you can get it from here. So this is the ratio, and it changes the tune of the modulator. So, okay, so I'm gonna go all the way down for now. Remember, I'm gonna go more, and then you have your feedback. In the case of this synthesizer, going down, it will affect the feedback on a different way. But if I keep going up, it will get more and more. And at some point, you get that noisy type of sound, but it will never go into full noise. So it affects the carrier on a different way. But of course, you get a lot more. It's louder. All right. So, this is how this one works. Now, the Formant is a filtered waveform, pretty much. This is what we get. But then at the top, you have two formants that can move around. And this is a very cool oscillator, but it's kind of hard to explain or to at least, show you on the screen what's going on. So I'm going to do something special. I'm going to go to the tune of this oscillator, and I'm going to tune it 2 octaves down. It's going to be 24 semitones down. All the knobs down. On this one, everything is down. But I'm going to go to the shape, and I'm going to make it almost 50%. There we go, 50%. Right, so if I play something, it doesn't sound that cool, right? Remember, we have two formants, and they can move around. The formants are controlled by the timbre option, the timbre knob. So if I play something and I move this, and I keep moving, at some point you're going to start seeing the formants. Notice that they start to appear, and this is how the type of sound that we get from this oscillator, that vocal type of sound. And there you go, you can see the two formants right there when I go all the way up. By default they can go down, they're here, but if I go up, we can see them. And by modulating this control, maybe with an LFO, maybe with the cycling envelope, you get this type of sounds. That's the plan. But you can see the two formants right there. So this is again part of the what this does. With this one, we control the formants, how they move on the frequency spectrum. But then you have the wave, which is going to be the interval. So this will make them make the formants closer, or it will separate them. Sometimes when we get them close, they're going to be like that. But then if I keep going on, they're going to be on a different interval. That's why it's called interval. And it will affect, of course, the whole sound. So, if you think about this, what is the trick about this one? Well, you use this and you use the other one to get different type of vocal formant sounds. It's not for everybody, but you can get cool sounds out of this one. Then the shape that right now it's at 50%, if I go all the way up, this is like a filter, pretty much. And that's why we get pretty much nothing, we are just filtering everything. If I go down, we go the other way, and I guess at 50% it's like the sweet spot. But then if you want less, you go down, and it's gonna filter. If I go up, it's gonna filter it as well. Alright, so, yeah, it's kind of filtering the formants, but that's fine. Alright, so, this is what you can get. My recommendation is to choose your shape. Don't go too aggressive because you're killing the whole sound, but modulate the formant with something and then modulate the interval with something else. Okay, so the next two are going to be easy and fun. We have a chord generator, which is going to be just on the oscillator 2. We don't get it on the oscillator number 1, so I'm going to go all the way down on the volume of the 1, and I'm going to go to the 2 and go all the way up in volume. Let me select or find the chord. There we go. That's the chord. This one, the shape down, the timbre down. And this one right now, it's all the way up. The wave is in charge to select the interval, which is, the chord. If I play one, and I'm playing one key, we start getting from major, major, but if I go all the way down, it's an octave. So I'm playing a C, it's just a C, and then a different C. If I keep going up, we start getting different combinations. 5th, sus4, minor 7th, 9, 11, and then 6th and 9 added. Then major 9, major 7, and major. So right here with this wave, you just select, you select the interval. I'm gonna go to maybe a minor. There we go. That's the minor. Now, since of course we have a chord, we need to select the inversion, and this is the timbre. So this doesn't work like other chord generators where you just press a button or just you move it to 1 or 2 and it will just change from one chord to the next one. This one, what it will do, it will start moving the pitches around, and that's why we hear a smooth transition, and it will always go up in frequency. But we are getting different combinations of the same chord, pretty much. Now, then we have the shape. If we think about this, this is about a chord, and this is about the inversion. But what are we using to generate a sound? And this is actually pretty cool. If I go all the way to 100%, it's going to be organ sounds. From 100 to 50, you get different sounds of organs, and we can really hear that is an organ. If I keep going down, of course you get different sounds, different organ sounds. Then as we keep getting closer to 50%, instead of getting organ sounds, what we do, we scan a wavetable with just different waveforms. Let me maybe go to something more basic like octave. And I guess that right there we can see it's a sine wave, and we start getting more like a square-ish, then a saw, and keep going down, and we get again a square, and then I guess we see square type of sound, narrow square, saw, and square, sine wave, and then organ sounds. Right, so right here you need to choose your poison in terms of the waveform. And then you, of course, choose your interval and choose your inversion. Alright, so now it's time to talk about the speech oscillator. I'm going to go all the way down so we can all start from the same spot. Make sure that the oscillator 2 is off all the way down. And then I'm going to go to wave and I'm going to go all the way up. And on the timbre, I'm going to go to 50%. This is, in my opinion, the starting point for this oscillator. All right, almost 50%. So now if I play a key, make sure the volume's up. If I play a key, what do we get? We get a word. And I'm playing right now different keys. And since this is a polyphonic synthesizer, we can make a chord. And we get that vocoder type of sound. So this is what it does. It will scan a list of words on a list. So the shape is going to be which word from whatever list. So in this case, this is the list and this is the word. So if I go up, we get different words. And so on, frequency, and I don't know, modular, oscillator, and waveform. But notice that all the words are kind of related. This is synth type of words. So this is the word picker, let's say, and this one is the list of words. So first it's going to be just words. If I keep going down, at some point, there we go. You are in a different list, but you're still using words, and using this one, you choose a different word. If I keep going down on the list, I don't know, it's a different word. Numbers. Now you're getting numbers.
3, 5, 6, 7.
Again, this is how it works. You go down the list. First, it's going all the way at the top. It's going to be words. But at some point, if you keep going down, you find numbers. You find colors. Indigo. Yellow, and so on. And if you keep going down, once you are, you pass the colors, it's formants, which is going to be the A, E, I, O, O. You can still, get that vocoder type of sound. All right. So I'm going to go all the way up and go back to the analog words. All right. So this one is going to affect the timbre. Of course, it's just timbre, but it will also affect the speed. If I go up, it's faster. If I go down, it's going to be slower. At some point, of course, it's unrecognizable. It's just like a noise. But again, anything it's usable in this universe, so there you go. So again, how it works, you just choose your list, choose a list, and then you choose a word from that list, and then you just fine-tune your timbre. Alright, so then we have the model, and the plan of this oscillator is to emulate real instruments, and this is very similar to the KarplusStr. It's kind of the same vibe. I'm gonna go all the way down on the controls, all the way down, make sure that the pitch it's at 0, and now if I play something, it sounds like a woodblock, right? It's very short and plucky. But again, the plan is just to trying to emulate those type of sounds. This is the vibe of this oscillator. Now, the wave is your fundamental. Changing this, it will change. I'm going to go higher in pitch. It will change the fundamental tone. As it now sounds like a different type of woodblock. I'm going to go all the way down, and it doesn't sound, super cool, but, adding maybe a little bit of distortion, compression, and maybe spatial effects like a reverb, it's just going to make it sound much, much nicer. Then you have the timbre, and the timbre is like the brightness. And this, both knobs, the shape and the timbre, they will modify or just change the sound to something completely different. I'm going to keep playing it, and I'm going to go up in timbre. So notice that now it's brighter. And keep going up. And now we go from wood blocks to a more type of bell, and I'm going to go up in the release of the synthesizer. So now we get more bell-ish type of sounds. And right now the release is not doing anything, so, and it's because we need to talk about this one, but notice how the sound changes from a wood block to something completely different. This one is the decay. Right now it's super plucky, but as we go up, we get more. Now it sounds like a bell. If you keep going up, it's going to be more sustained and of course more noisy. Keep going up on the decay. And if I go up on the decay now, we get that bell type of sound. I'm going to go down on the timbre. Alright, so this is the sounds that we can get. I'm going to go up on timbre. There we go. Now, not all of the oscillators are for, any type of occasion. If you want to create some evolving paths, well, maybe this sound will not help you a lot. Maybe you will need to bring the oscillator 2 and just the one with the 2 and just, create that sound. So, but this one, it's perfect for those bell type of sounds, or even, plucky, like the wood block. Alright, so very simple oscillator. It always depends on how you want to use it. So let's move on to the next one. The next one is going to be the noise. Now this one, it's not just noise. You can do a little bit more than that. I'm going to go to the timbre, and I'm going to go all the way up on the timbre and all the way down on the odd ones. And I'm going to tell you why in a minute. So if I play something, what do we get? We get a very noisy sound. Now I'm going to play the lowest key, and we get that sound. I'm going to play the highest key, and we get the same sound. So we can assume that this is not really responding to your keys. It's the same sound every time that you play a key. Now the wave is going to select the noise that you get. All the way down, it's not the typical pink or brown noise. It's going to be particle noise, which is a noise fragmented and sampled down, and that's why it sounds super lo-fi. If I go up, and I'm gonna go down in volume, we start getting the normal sound, the normal noise. And if you keep going down, it's gonna be from noise to sample down noise to metallic type of noise. Noise, sample down, metallic. Alright, I'm gonna, maybe stay right now for now at noise. Now, the timbre, this one will reduce the sample rate. All the way down, all the way up is no down sampling. Maybe I'm gonna go to the metallic one so we can get a tone. And if I keep going down, it will affect it, especially on the pitch. And on the other ones, since they are more noisy, we get a more, super downsampled and lo-fi type of sound. Sounds like an 80s video game. If you're 20 years old, you don't know what I'm telling you right now, but it sounds like an old video game. Alright, so this is what this does. And the other one, this one, is going to be the balance. It's not the balance about the wave and the timbre. This one will give you a classic waveform. Right now, if I play a key again, remember, it doesn't, and I'm playing different keys, it doesn't care about which key I'm playing, it doesn't care about pitch. But this will bring, and I'm gonna maybe go there. I'm gonna go up on this one, and notice that we start getting something at the back. So first, it's going to be whatever noise that you select right here, and then a sine wave. And if I keep going up, it's going to be a triangle. And if I keep going up, it's going to be a square. So now when you play a key, you get that whatever noisy sound that you're selecting right here. But you do get a tone, so now you can play the keys, or even chords, if you wanted to. And the combination of the noise and the whatever waveform you select is what it will give you the sound of this oscillator. Coming up next, after the noise, is going to be the bass. And I'm going to go down on all the different knobs. If I play something, what do we get? We get it's not a sine wave, but it's just like a saturated sine wave. And this is what it is. It's going to be a saturated type of sine wave. Now, then the first one, the wave, is going to drive the waveform. So as I go up, we can get more harmonics and sharp edges. And now it looks like a saw. We go from a sine wave lookalike to a saw. We are saturating it, which is, cool. Now then, for now I'm going to go down. The timbre is going to be wave folding, and we already talked about this. It's going to fold it, and we get more harmonics, or just different harmonics in this case. Get more, of course. You can see it right there on the spectrum, that we go from this to this. Just way too much. And again, wave folding. And the next one, it's going to be the noise. For now, I'm just going to do something like that. We get a little bit more. I'm going to go up in shape. This one, it's noise, but it's just not the traditional noise. It's using the noise to phase modulate the oscillator. So that's why when I go up, it's going to start like moving. And this is what this control does. It's not your classic noise. It's phase modulating the oscillator with noise. And sometimes, depending on what you want to do, this is something that you might like. I don't like it that much. But if I go down, of course, it's much static. And with this one, you introduce a little bit of movement. And if we think about this doesn't sound like a bass, right? It sounds like something else. Well, now you need to use the rest of the synthesizer to create a bass patch. Right now, maybe I want to go down 1 octave. That's going to be a thing. Then I'm going to be doing some cut of frequencies. I'm going to be doing some resonance. And now we get a bassy type of sound. So maybe we can use the envelope just to modulate the cutoff. And of course, I'm going to need to adjust the envelope to modulate the cutoff. Now we get, a bass sound. And this is for all the oscillators. They generate a sound, but then you need to shape it with the rest of the synthesizer. Okay, so the next one is going to be the SawX. And this one is just a saw, but it's going to be a saw with a tiny little twist. I'm going to go all the knobs way down. And again, we just get that saw. So the first one, the wave, this one, if I press and hold, maybe I'm going to go down in volume. If I keep going up, notice what happens. It's going to start to hard sync the saw, pretty much. And remember, since you're hard syncing as you keep going up and up and up, it's going to hard sync it, but you also go up in pitch. So you need to remember this. Alright, so this is the first thing, is the hard sync. Then you have the timbre, and right here it's called shape. I know that you have shape right here, but this one is going to be the shape for this oscillator. And this one, it's special because it will add copies of the saw. And if I play something, if I start moving it, notice that we start getting the other copies. We see them, and we also hear that phasey type of sound. And there we go. As you keep going more, you can see the copies. Since you're going up in volume and you're bringing them to the front, the waveforms will start to interact, and you will get this movement. And I'm just holding a key. If I play a chord, we can hear the movement. And this might be something that you like, or maybe you don't, but it's a cool thing that you get with this one, in my opinion, if you want that vintage type of sound. Alright, so this is what the shape or timbre in this case will do. And then, just like the bass oscillator, this one will go up and use noise to modulate the waveform. I'm going to press one single key. If I go up, notice that it's just going crazy. As I go up, it's going to be more and more. It's just like the bass one. It uses noise to modulate. And in my opinion, this is something I don't like that much. I would prefer to use something else. Even a chorus, I don't know, something else. But you get that sound. And this is maybe one single key. It's not that tasty. Maybe a chord. It sounds really cool. Okay, so coming up next, it's going to be the Harmo. If I go all the knobs down on this one, everything is all the way to 0. I play it and we get just a sine wave. We don't get a lot of harmonics. It's not a perfect sine wave, so we do get some harmonics. if I go up, we start getting more, and we can see them right there, detuning. That's why this is spread. We can see on the spectrum all the harmonics going in. Now, as you can see and hear, this will of course bring those harmonics, but at the same time, you get the atonal sounds, and it's because, you know, it's affecting pitch. And notice take a look at the tuner. It goes crazy when we go to other values. So you are detuning. Need to be really aware of this. As you keep going down, up, at some point you're gonna find the sweet spot, and now you're in C, which is the key I'm playing. So you're in tune. But if you keep going up, it's going to go up, and up. And at some point, it's gonna go up in pitch and up in octaves, of course. Alright, so you can use this one just to get atonal sounds, or just to get, you know, a different sound out of this. All the way down, very atonal, and then, you know, more musical. Alright, so this is gonna be the spread, and if I go all the way down and back to the sine wave, I'm gonna play a key, and I'm gonna go to the timbre, and the timbre is the rectify. So think of this as a Waveshaper. As you keep going up, it's gonna like distort it or shape it, and we get, of course, different harmonics. And we go all the way up, it sounds like that. And you know, the combination of the rectify and the rest gives you cool sounds. Alright, so that's the spread and the rectify. I'm gonna go all the way down and all the way down. Then we have the noise, and the noise is just like the bass and the SawX, because it's from the same developer, but it's a little bit different. If I go up, notice that we start getting that noise. And we get it, and we get noise. It's not being modulated, but, you know, we get it. But now, then, at the same time, this noise is a little bit different from the other ones, because it will distort, will clip the master. And notice that we are going from a sine wave to a square, because it's clipping. But we also get the noise. I would love to remove the noise from this oscillator, from this algorithm, but, you know, we cannot. We get noise and distortion. But, you know, that's the way it works. So the addition of the noise and the spread and then rectifying gives you a wide tonal range. Coming up next, it's the Wavetable. I'm gonna go there, and now I'm gonna go all the way down on the knobs, but then this one is the filter. Notice it's minus 50, so the starting point for this one is gonna be 0. I'm gonna put it right there. And I don't need to explain this. This is a wavetable type of oscillator. This one, the wave, will scan the wavetable. Notice that you get a lot of different sounds. So yeah, this is what it does. Just scanning the wavetable. Coming up next is going to be the pulse width. So it's going to make it narrow, or it's just going to make it normal. And that's it. You know, that's pretty much it. Now this one is a filter. It's a one pole low pass or high pass filter. Let me just go to, maybe not there. Okay, I'm gonna go there. So if I go up, notice that it's chopping the low frequencies. If I go down, it's gonna chop the higher frequencies. So you cut highs or you cut lows if you go to the other way. How can you change or select different wavetables? You cannot add your own for now, I guess. Maybe they release a firmware update, but you have factory wavetables, you have lots, and you have different ways to access the wavetables. One way it's going to be going to the sound edit. I'm gonna go there, and then if you go to the oscillator, and I'm showing you this first because you have the screen. If you go to the oscillator and keep scrolling down, is wavetable select. If you go there, whatever it is that you select, it's gonna be that wavetable. So this is one way of doing it. Let me just get out. Another way of selecting a wavetable is going to be by going to the sound edit, hold it, and then press the select oscillator. It's going to take you to the wavetables. Right, so I'm going to get out. And another way to do this is while you are on the wavetable, and I'm going to be holding one key. Let me just hold it. I'm gonna go to shift and I'm gonna move the type. This is gonna choose a different wavetable. Right, and it's gonna be on the go. When you release this, you're out of this mode and it's gonna go back to the normal mode. Next, it's going to be the FM and RM. So this is, again, just like the other one, an oscillator 2 deal. So I'm gonna go to oscillator 2 and I'm gonna go to that oscillator. Let me find it. There we go, FM, RM. So this one, what it does, and it's super awesome. It's just very special. The oscillator 2 is gonna get modulated by oscillator 1. How? Well, you know, with FM, with frequency modulation and ring modulation. So on the 2, and I'm using that oscillator, make sure that you are there. And I'm going to go all the way down on this knobs, and I'm going to go volume all the way down on the 2. Now, this one will use the oscillator number 1 to do something. So I need to go to the oscillator number 1 and select an oscillator. And since you have a lot of oscillators, you can create a lot of sounds. I'm going to maybe select the harmonic. There we go. I'm going to go there. And I know I'm selecting this one because if I go all the way down on the oscillator, on the harm, I know that I just get the sine wave. That's it. So the volume of this, I'm going to go all the way down on the oscillator 1, but I know that I always have a sine wave, almost like a sine wave. Now I'm going to go to the oscillator 2. The oscillator 2 is listening to the oscillator number 1. And we have the first knob, which is going to be wave all the way down. I'm going to be using this one. Notice if I move it, it's going to say freak mod, and then it says ring mod. So if I play it, this one, notice how it works. We have a sine wave on this oscillator, the oscillator 2, and it's being modulated by the oscillator number 1. That's why we go up, we are doing frequency modulation. And we get that, you know, something very similar we did with the FM oscillator of this synthesizer. We go up and we get more. But always remember that the sound of the oscillator number 1 will affect the oscillator 2. So whatever we do on the 1 will influence the number 1. If I go here and change the spread of the harm, we get really special sounds. All right. Now I'm gonna go back to the 2, and this is, this is how it works. If I go down, we just get pretty much nothing, and it's because by default the oscillator 2 is using a sine wave, and this is gonna be the wave. But for now I'm gonna go to this control, which this one is gonna be the ring mod. And it's just, ring modulation, how much of that we do between the oscillator 2 and the oscillator 1. And you can use both at the same time if you want and get really cool sounds. I go down and we are not doing anything. We get the sine wave. Now, why do we get again the sine wave? Is the oscillator 2 default waveform. So this is going to give you different waveforms. By default is sine wave, but if I keep moving up, it's going to go to a triangle. And at some point, keep going up, it's going to go to a saw. And if we keep going up, at some point, it's going to be a square. So it's going to, if we choose a square, for example, it's a square of the oscillator 2 being modulated by the oscillator 1. And notice how crazy it sounds. Now, alright, so I am an FM type of guy. I just love that type of sound. So I think that this is the best oscillator of all the oscillators on the synthesizer. And it's just a personal opinion. This is what I really, really like. The other oscillators are just really useful for different things. But with this one, I can generate a lot of sounds. Alright, so we are pretty much done. The only thing left, it's going to be the audio in. I'm going to show it in a minute, but then, you have the last oscillators, which are not oscillators. I already covered them on the deep dive. So if I go to the oscillator 2, the oscillator 2 will give you the filters. And this one are filters or effects. The multi-filter is a, filter. If I play something, I'm using something, I guess it was the basic waves on the oscillator number 1. So the filter is a multi-filter. It's going to give you a cutoff so you can chop the high frequencies. If you're using that mode, you also get a resonance. So if you don't like the default, analog filter that you get on the synthesizer, you can use the multi-filter. So you have a lot of different shapes, including the dry and the wet right here for the filter. So if I go down, is a low pass of 36, then 24, then, and you know what, I'm gonna do some chopping and some resonance so we can see the curves. If I go down, oh, made a mistake. If I go down, is much aggressive, different resonant point, 24, 12, and then we have a low pass of 6 with no resonance. And then we go to a high pass, keep it going, moving forward. Then we have a band pass, and at some point, we're gonna get a notch. Alright, so this again are filters. I'm gonna go to the next one. This one is more like an EQ. So if I start chopping frequencies, notice it's super aggressive, like, you know, super aggressive. But the good thing is that you have the dry and the wet, so you can, you know, chop some frequencies and then blend the right amount. Alright, then it works just like the multi-filter. You have different types. You have a low pass, then you have a band pass, you have a high pass, and you have a notch. So the first one, the multi-filter, is just, you know, a normal filter, just like we would use on any synthesizer. This one is more like a, you know, an effects. We can just remove some frequencies or just get them out and then just do some kind of modulation right here and get a different tone. That's the plan. Just like the other ones, if I keep moving up, you have the comp filter, and this is the comp, right? If I move the cutoff, I'm gonna go gain all the way up, and I'm gonna go no dampening. So we can see right there the comp, and it's just an effect, an effects. But this goes before the filter, and that's why they are so useful. And the next one is going to be a phase filter. And as you could guess, this works just like a phaser. We have the feedback. If I go more poles and move this, it sounds like a, you know, it sounds like a phaser. Maybe I'm going to go more. Right? If we modulate this, it sounds like a phaser. And the last one is going to be the destroy. And this is a bit crusher mixed with, you know, a lo-fi machine, let's say. The first one is going to be the fold. So you're going to be getting folding. Just like we did before. You have a decimator. And then you have a bit crush. And I don't need to explain much right here. It's just effects. Right? So maybe you have something on the oscillator number 1 that you want to fold it, or maybe do a little bit of bit crushing and get that lo-fi going. Well, you can. But remember that this is an oscillator 2 deal, so once you are doing something using one of these audio processor types, the oscillator number 2 is going to be occupied. You cannot use it. You can only generate a sound with the oscillator 1. Alright, so the last thing we need to cover is the oscillator 1 in. And this is an oscillator 1 deal only. Let me just find it. There we go. Audio in. Right now, this one is connected to the audio in at the back. Whatever is out that is going in is going to go through the oscillator. It's going to be outputted right there. And then it's going to go through the analog filter and everything else, right? Just like any other synthesizer that will accept an audio in. So if I play something, of course, I'm not getting anything because I'm just using the oscillator number 1. And I'm going to be playing a sequence. When I play it, you know, we get nothing. And I'm going to go up in volume. So if we are listening to this, you have a few options right here. I'm going to go all the way down on all of them and make sure that this oscillator is all the way up. So if I play right here, oh, made a mistake. If I play a sequence, the sequence is going this one, it's outputting sound to the audio in. If I play something, only then we can hear whatever this one is doing. And I'm going to make sure that, you know, we have nothing right here. Everything is all the way up, and we are not chopping frequencies because whatever sound that goes here is going to be processed by the rest of the synthesizer. But it only will, we can only hear sound when we play a key because it will open the envelopes and let the sound pass. When I release, you know, we get silence. Now, since it's super low, maybe we want to adjust the volume in. So you have a couple of ways of doing this. You can go to the sound edit. I'm going to go to shift, hold the shift. And if I go to the sound edit, notice it says utility. So we need to scroll down until you see, let me find it first, the one that says audio. When you go to audio, it's going to give you audio in gain. So if I go to audio in gain, by default is mine minus 9 dBs, which is way too low. I'm gonna go higher, and I'm pressing a key right now, and that's why we can hear the synthesizer. So right here you can go up to really loud, but if you go super loud, you're gonna be clipping. So keep it on, keep it controlled. I'm gonna keep it on +4. Right here, the controls are super simple, but they're just a little bit confusing sometimes. Right now, if I play something, we have a nice volume. So this is the control for the audio in. Notice it goes up in volume. You're gonna go down in volume to control. That's why I'm telling you, you need to be careful when you go up in volume on the sound, on the utility. Because this is the actual volume, but it only works as a volume when you're not using the decimate and when you're not using the noise. If they are all the way down, this is just like the audio in. But when you go up in decimate, this acts as a wave folder. I'm gonna go up in noise, and it's gonna give you the noise. If I go down in this, go down in noise, it will give you the decimate. Alright, so that's one thing, and then you have the noise. Now this depends on what you want to do. Maybe you don't care about the decimate and the noise, and you just want to go through the in and input something. You can use this as a main volume control, and if it's still, way too quiet for you, then you go to the sound edit and you crank it up. Okay, so we are done with all the oscillators, and I know that it was maybe a little bit boring, a little bit too long, but I don't know, maybe you wanted to know, or maybe a little bit more information about all the oscillators, and now you know. So if you find this useful and you learned something new, please like and subscribe, and this channel is supported by viewers only. If you want to buy me a coffee to say thanks and help the channel keep going on, you can. You have links in the description for PayPal, YouTube Thanks, and Patreon. See you on the next one.